What's going on, everybody? You are locked into another episode of the Sick Podcast, Steelers. Crazy, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching, you're still a passionate fan. Obviously, it appears mathematically the Steelers season is probably over, but it's never really over in Pittsburgh as there's so much to still play for, growth, development. We're trying to grow here every time we put out a podcast. That's Jordan York. You can find him at Jordan York Music. I'm Mike DeCastro. Jordan, man, you're rocking the gear. That is the white, the black. I'm jealous, man.
Yeah, Sammy and Anala, they hooked it up. I'm repping the team right now. And we just have a lot of, like I said, the Steelers are down right now, but we're always going to be covering them. The draft's coming, and we have a lot of big stuff planned in 2023. We have a special guest today, and I'll let you do the intro right after Sammy plays this.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Steelers play at the Carolina Panthers this Sunday. Of course, our usual Thursday spot, we like to bring on a team reporter for the opponent. And today we are very lucky and excited to be joined by the editor of catcrave.com. I'm assuming that means the Panthers, and he doesn't have a bunch of cats, but maybe, you never know, we'll ask. You can find him on Twitter at @DeanJones_. He is none other than Dean Jones. Dean, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I do actually have one cat, but it's more of an annoyance than a craving. So I don't know what you can make of that, really.
Well, I think a double meaning then to catcrave.com. We'll go with that, I suppose. Hey, let me address the elephant in the room real quick. You're from Wales.
Yep.
Have you guys got over the World Cup yet? How's the vibe, the mood?
Man,
yeah,
you have to
kind
ask
of.
that early.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. It was disappointing. I mean, they just didn't do enough. I mean, there's a lot of the players. It was kind of the same squad from the European Championships in 2016, where they reached the semi-final, and just a little bit older, a little bit slower, and not enough quality players coming through really. So paid the price. But first time I've ever seen them in a World Cup, so which I never thought would happen. So we've got to take that as a positive.
Yeah, I can never take that for granted, no question whatsoever. We hadn't had a World Cup in 8 years, so it was nice to see the guys back on the pitch, no question about that. All right, I never thought in a million years I'd be making this transition. However, we're going to go from, I guess, a negative to a degree to a positive with the Carolina Panthers. Wait a minute, this is a team that's won 3 of 4 after starting 2-7. They control their destiny over there in the NFC South. What the hell is going on, Dean?
They're rejuvenated, and it's. I mean, the results are there now, but it's been quite evident from kind of week 6 on. They got a good hammering at the Bengals, but apart from that, it's been pretty good, and it all starts with the coaching. They were just going nowhere fast under Matt Rule. He had a lot of promises and didn't really come up with the goods. To be honest, the fan base were not inspired at all. Most of them had enough long before. Kind of he ended up getting fired after the 49ers loss. And I mean, Steve Wilkes has done an absolutely sensational job. I mean, he's completely reset the culture there, got everyone buying in. He's a true leader of men. And kind of the big difference between him and Matt Rule is the more professional approach and his demeanor, really. I mean, he's someone who knows the Carolinas. He went to App State. He's from the Charlotte area. He was a fan of the team, and it's really coming across, and the players have bought in, and they're establishing an identity. So, I mean, to have a chance of even winning the division with 4 games to go, if you'd have asked a Panthers fan before the season started, if they'd have taken that, they'd have bitten your hand off probably. But it's all positive, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, no question about that. I want to talk a little quarterbacking. Guys have rotated, a handful of guys. Obviously, Baker Mayfield was intended to be the starter when he was brought in. PJ Walker, a guy that you guys have had for a few years and has shown some flashes for sure, but ultimately you go back to Sam Darnold. What has he shown you guys in the last couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, they're not asking him to do a lot. To be honest with you, this is a team who likes to control the line of scrimmage and run the football a lot, which they're doing well. I mean, another huge game last weekend at the Seahawks put them ahead early, and it's also kind of worth noting that this is the best offensive line Sam Darnold's ever worked behind as well, which is helping. I mean, this group is so much more improved from last year. I mean, they've got real continuity. They're staying healthy, carving up holes for the running backs, and they're doing really well in pass protection as well. But in terms of Darnold, I mean, he's a lot more efficient now. Like I say, they're not putting too much pressure on him to force the issue. There's still some processing issues, and he does miss some wide open looks sometimes. I mean, that was evident when the Seahawks were kind of getting back into the game on Sunday. But like I say, it's been largely positive again, and it's a sign of superior coaching, a good game plan, and the players being able and prepared to execute.
You touched on something that I want to hit on. Mention this run game. Guys like Deontay Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, Blackshear I saw has actually been getting some totes lately. You trade Christian McCaffrey and the running game gets better? Make some sense out of that for me.
Yeah, I mean, there was an over-reliance on him. I don't think that's a secret. Where McCaffrey was concerned, I mean, that's why he's been injured for the best part of 2 years before the 22 season. So spreading the wealth, keeping everyone fresh, and a more physical style of running, I think, rather than sort of McCaffrey getting out on the edge and trying to tune up the outs that way. Dante Foreman is the power back. He's so physical. I mean, he's kind of a volume back who needs touches to wear down defenses, but if he gets sort of 20 plus carries every game, he's guaranteed to do damage. And then Chuba Hubbard, obviously, he had some struggles as a rookie, especially in pass pro and in the passing game. But he's coming on leaps and bounds now with a little bit more responsibility. And like you said, Raheem Blackshear got him off the Bills practice squad and drafted free agent. He's kind of flashing a little bit as well, and he's a pretty decent kick returner. So this sort of triple-headed monster that they've got behind the offensive line, obviously with Ike Ekwonu, Austin Corbett, Bradley Bozeman, is absolutely sensational. I mean, you probably know a lot about him from his time with the Ravens. He came in for Pat Elflein, who got injured, but he's been absolutely brilliant as well since he came into the lineup. So yeah, this is the blueprint. And even if opposing teams know what's coming, I mean, it's difficult to stop either way.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to also touch on, when we bring other team reporters on, is the injury report. Who's banged up right now for the Panthers?
Yesterday, everyone practiced apart from Brandon Smith, the rookie linebacker. Even DJ Moore was full participant, which is a massive bonus because he needed an MRI on his knee after Sunday's game. Turned out to be a sprain, but he was day-to-day, but he was a full participant yesterday. So that's really good news because he's easily their best weapon on the outside. But yeah, they're looking pretty fresh. There's a couple who might miss out, but they should get Corey Littleton back as well, who's kind of an underrated rotational linebacker this season. So yeah, all systems go, I think.
DJ Moore's on my fantasy team. I'd love to hear that. It's playoff time. I saw that Q next to his name. And you hate to see that Q. I got T. Higgins, and he had a Q as well, so I need DJ Moore back. Heck yeah, Jordan. I'm pumped about that. Let's go.
Yeah, that's what we have to be excited for in Steelerland right now, because fantasy championships, I don't think there's going to be a championship this year, unfortunately, but we're always going to keep the faith until we're mathematically eliminated. What worries you the most about looking at this Steeler team? Like, is there any matchup skill players that, you think they could, wreak havoc to the Panthers?
Pat Frymouth, maybe the tight end.
Healthy, yeah.
If there's one kind of area where they do struggle, it's sort of defending out the slot in the passing game. I mean, they've got JC Horn on the outside, and CJ Henderson's coming on a lot over the last few weeks after Steve Wilkes challenged him in a press conference that he needed to be better. But I would say that that would be the main threat. Najee Harris, obviously, as well, but Carolina's run defense is improving a lot. Obviously, you've got Derek Brown and Yetur Gross-Matos is really setting the edge. I mean, he's not getting a lot of pressure in terms of pass rushing, but his run block win rate is among the best in the league for defensive ends. So that should be an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah, just before I throw it back to Mike, in Steeler land right now, Tomlin likes to, move the way that he does. They call it the Steeler way. So right now, we don't even know who the starting quarterback. Kenny Pickett was, practicing limited. He was in full pads from what I've seen, but we don't know if it's going to be Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky. So I guess, I don't know when he'll make that announcement, but there's a lot of turmoil over here in Pittsburgh right now.
I want to ask about Kenny Pickett, Dean. There was a lot of murmurs that you guys might draft him. He had a connection with Matt Rule. Obviously, your quarterback situation was not ideal. Tell me a little bit of leading up into that draft process. Were Panthers reporters kind of leaning that way?
Yes and no. I mean, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. The need for a quarterback was there, obviously, but they were desperate for a left tackle. I mean, absolutely desperate. Cam Irving was an abomination, for want of a better word, last year when he came in free agency. So that was priority number one, because until the left tackle was sorted, it doesn't matter who was under centre, really. They was just going to be under constant duress. And as luck had it, all three of the top tackles fell out of the top five, so they got the top player on their board, Ike Ekwonu, and the rest is history. I mean, he's been fantastic. He got scored by Myles Garrett in week one, and then gave up another sack against the Giants in week two. But since then, he's only given up one, and that was against Bruce Irvin last week. So, I mean, Pickett was always going to be in consideration, providing he'd fallen a little bit further. And obviously, the Panthers didn't have a second-round pick either after the Sam Darnold trade. So, I mean, there was a lot of rumours and speculation, and they did their due diligence. But I think, judging by the Panthers Confidential that they released after the draft, they were much higher on Matt Corral.
Interesting. Yeah, obviously you have him. Jordan, is that Arya, or does Dean have a newborn as well?
No, Arya is sleeping. Yeah, I have a newborn too.
Both have newborn.
Yeah.
Thought it might be the cat. No. We like it. We like the acoustics.
Yeah.
Kind of sums up the season for the Steelers. Honestly, a lot of crying and tough times over here. I think it's some good acoustics there. Ultimately, I think it's interesting that you both have newborns as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be the cat.
That could be. But yeah, I think that the interesting thing is that you always want to get other people's takes on, like, Kenny Pickett is our quarterback. Obviously, like I'll never forget this when we were gonna. It was like a long shot. Like, I golfed with Kenny Pickett, before his senior season. So it's just like, it's crazy. Just
Dean, was that a newborn, a cat? We gotta ask.
No, my 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we said we like the acoustics, honestly, because
just diva young girl problems. She's fine now.
There's been a lot of crying in Steelers land, so honestly, that could have been.
It goes right along with it. That's why it was either mine, Steelers land, or
backtrack.
We solved that mystery.
Yeah, we need to. That's one that would make a lot of sense for a backtrack audio.
The newborns are the easy bit. Is when they get a bit older and get more dramatic.
Plus the holidays. I get it. You got to use that Grinch tactic or the cold.
Yeah.
He's the editor of catcrave.com, and he does have a cat. So, as I said, it's fitting. Dean Jones. Dean, one last thing. I need, of course, you to give some predictions for us here on the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Want a couple player predictions, if you don't mind, guys who have good games, maybe some stat lines, maybe a DJ Moore touchdown in there too, and then a final score.
I'm looking forward to watching JC Horn against George Pickens. depending on which sort of player Carolina designates as the best threat between him and Johnson. But that should be a really good matchup. JC, I expect him to have a big day. He was absolutely unbelievable against DK Metcalf last week. Locking down one of the most physically imposing receivers in football is not easy, but he's been playing at all pro level most of the year. I know the Steelers' run defense has been poor overall, but they've sort of come on a little bit over the last few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see who wins in the trenches. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. And obviously, Ike Ekwonu against TJ Watt, who's not the most beloved in Carolina, to put it mildly, after his sort of hit on Cam Newton started a roller coaster of poor production, injuries, and a quarterback carousel over the last 3 years. So if he's expecting anything other than a rowdy reception, depending on how many...
I never even thought of that. I'm glad that you
Yeah.
brought that up. That's just like, and that's what's cool about, getting it from a different perspective, because when me and Mike talk, we're always just getting it from a Pittsburgh perspective. So like coming from, an insider like you, it's really cool. Like to, I would have I didn't even think that did you think that, Mike, that TJ Watt was hated in Carolina?
I forgot. Maybe first or second season, I'd imagine. Obviously, it lines up with the Cam Newton timeline.
Wow.
Yeah, Panthers fans have definitely not forgotten.
Wow.
I can say that with judging by what sort of happened afterwards. With Cam getting injured and then released, and
sure.
Yeah,
Bridgewater and Darnold and Walker and Mayfield and back to Darnold.
Rotating for sure.
Yeah.
Give us a score, Dean, and we'll get you out of here.
I like Carolina. I'm going to say pretty close, but say 21-17.
All right. Love that. Dean, we love you coming on. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we get another Steelers-Panthers matchup, hopefully in the Super Bowl next year, and then you can jump on with us. If not, maybe we'll talk to you in 4 years. You're the
even better. We'll meet you at the Super Bowl.
There you go. We'll see you there.
Yeah, maybe if Mike Florio's thing's correct about a trade for Mike Tomlin, we can...
Wow. Yeah, I didn't get to ask you about that. Any comments on that? How that feel?
Unlikely. They hoarded all these draft picks to build the roster, not to get a head coach. But and there was talk of kind of Tepper not being happy with Tomlin when he was minority owner anyway. So I'm not sure if that's got any juice to it. But you never say never in the NFL, after all, do you?
Definitely.
Yep. The editor, catcrave.com, @DeanJones_. Much appreciated. We'll get you a pint when you come to the States.
Yeah. Thanks, Dean.
I'll hold you to that. Thanks, guys.
Jordan, I just mentioned real quick. That was great, obviously, but I'm repping my Chris Wormley short shirt here before we get off. We're thinking of Chris daily here. Was having a good season. The nicest guy, literally, of all time. Chris Wormley show is every Tuesday. If you're listening to this or watching this, it's very important to note that this coming Tuesday, the Chris Wormley show at Cafe Note was canceled. So I know a lot of people made plans to that. It was completely out of everybody's control. Obviously, we're looking forward to that in a big way. But Chris, of course, going through surgeries, it's just not good.
It's bigger than football right now. He needs to get his health back and be with his family. And
spread the word. If friends are going, family are going, spread the word for us. Here's a good thing. Even if you show up and Chris is there, they still have Santa, they'll still have live music, you'll have a good time. But I just wanted to mention towards the end of this, Jordan, that is canceled.
Unfortunately. We'll say postponed, because there's always 2023.
Good call. And for the Steelers, there's always 2023 as well. All right. I'm Mike Nicastro. That's Jordan York. Another great show. Make sure you follow us on Instagram @The Sick Podcast Steelers. YouTube, The Sick Podcast Steelers. Crazy. Twitter @SickPodSteelers. We have some giveaways going on as well. Thanks, guys.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.